Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Camila, and if you're new here, I am a full-time content creator. In the fall of 2023, I quit my 9-to-5 desk, office, tech job. Fast forward to today, I am still making content. Quitting my job and taking on content full-time was really rough, and I didn't honestly start making money good money until my 4th or 5th month of UGC. But since then, it has basically just been uphill. So I am definitely an advocate of UGC, whether you want to take it on as a side hustle or if you're doing it full time, like I basically took on. So I could go on and on about the benefits of UGC and how it changed my life, how I love it, and all this great stuff, because that is truly how I feel. It still makes up the majority of my monthly income, but I've realized that I have not really talked about the cons of UGC, and now that I've been doing it for close to 2 years, I definitely have a laundry list of cons of UGC that I would love to share, especially if you're a new UGC creator, just to shed some light on the job and the industry itself. Okay, so of course I wrote everything down on my laptop, so let's just kind of jump right in, starting with rates. I don't think this one is any surprise. If you are a UGC beginner, you'll already know this. A lot of the rates out there are just super low ball. There's this huge conception about UGC, especially a couple years ago, when a lot of people created the perception that you could make a ton of money with UGC, even as a beginner. And I just found in my own journey that was not true. But even about 2 years into creating content, that issue is still persisting. So there are just low balls across the board that you have to navigate through. You will have to decline offers, and it is hard to even pass up low ball offers when you're new. And even when you're intermediate, like, it's still money on the table, and you just have to learn that some of these gigs are not worth your time. But I understand how difficult it is when you're in a position where you need money and you are basically willing to accept even the low ball offers. Trust me, I have been there. I think what really helps is getting to a point of where your calendar is so booked and you're so busy that your only option is to decline a low ball offer. Definitely try to negotiate as much as you can to bring those numbers as high as you can. Even being 2 years into my journey, negotiating is still somewhat difficult for me. I'm, of course, better now than I was when I first started, but it is really just a journey of learning to negotiate with brands and businesses and knowing when to say no to offers that don't align with you. The next con I just want to briefly brush over, and I already kind of mentioned this kind of in my intro, is that it takes a long time to build consistent momentum in your UGC business. If you are just getting started with UGC, it is going to be very quiet. Like, you are going to hear crickets. You're going to build your portfolio, but if you don't have any socials backed up, or if you aren't established on any freelancer platforms, the only way to get clients is to pitch via like email or maybe Instagram or TikTok DMs. But even that is going to be a slow process to actually get yeses and land paid collabs. Just generally, a big con, I guess you could say, of UGC is that it takes time to build consistent income. Personally, it took me about 4 to 5 months of hitting consistent multiple 4-figure months. And that was me kind of diving in full time. If I was doing it on the side, it could even take longer than that. Don't think just because you created a portfolio and because you just started your Instagram or TikTok page for UGC that you're gonna start getting a bunch of inbounds. It doesn't work that way. You have to build all of your social media channels up. You have to be established on freelancer platforms to even receive inbounds, at least high quality inbounds. Just keep that in mind and be patient. This next con is super general, and this con would apply to basically any job and industry, but it's basically that pitching, so pitching via an email pitch or pitching via an Instagram or TikTok DM, is time consuming, and you're going to face a lot of rejection. So a lot of no's, a lot of brands coming back to you, maybe with rates that don't align with you, or just simply a no. Personally, I do not pitch anymore, and I have my reasons behind that. I just really disliked it. I have tried websites that create pitches for me, like AI pitches, and then I can like batch send them. But even in doing that, I kind of just stop doing that too. So in general, I work with all inbound leads through social media pages, or they find me through my socials and they'll email me, or I'm still working on Fiverr and Upwork and other freelancer platforms, and I basically let all of my work come to me because I have just never enjoyed the pitching aspect of UGC. So for me, that's one of my cons. And yeah, just take everything with a grain of salt. A lot of these are from my own personal experience, but I think a lot can apply to a lot of creators. And just like this next con coming up, this is going to apply to only some of you, but being a non-US citizen is going to be sometimes a con, because a lot of the brands that you will work with are going to be based in the United States, and a lot of the time they're only willing to work with US creators with a US postal code. You're going to notice that very early on, that you're going to get even more rejection. So that is an obvious con for us. A lot of the time it will happen with smaller brands who don't ship internationally, but it does not mean that you cannot make a full-time income being a UGC creator just because you're not in the States. That is not true. It is just an extra hurdle or challenge to get over. Okay, so this one is much more of a juicy one, and this again is more based off of my personal opinion, so I'm interested to know how you guys feel about this. It could be controversial. It could be controversial. It could be controversial. I don't know how to say that. Brain fart. This one could be controversial, but it is unsustainable to do long-term full-time. And that is how I have been feeling myself. So yes, you are doing something new every day. Every gig, every job is different, which I love. But at the same time, I think for a lot of freelancers, I think they can relate. It feels like you're often working from one gig to the next, and you're not working towards a larger picture. With a lot of UGC work, it is small gigs here and there. That can often lead to a lot of burnout and just feelings of unsustainability. Because yes, I'm putting in a lot of work every single day to offer the best kind of work I can to my clients, but it feels like you're just moving from one job to the next, to the next, to the next. And at the end of the day, yes, you have all of this awesome work to show on your portfolio, but what is the big picture of it all? That is how I have been feeling in the freelancer space recently. Honestly, I have craved to work towards something that is a little bit bigger and that is a little more long-term and that feels something that is more sustainable. Once again, if you guys have any thoughts or opinions on that, please leave them down below so we can start a UGC discussion in the comments. I feel like going off of that last con of it feeling unsustainable to do long term, burnout is tied very closely to that. Burnout is just part of the package. I have definitely felt burnout from some gigs. There have been many gigs where I'm just so glad they're over. Nobody can just create content on autopilot forever. And again, so this next con ties to the last con again, and that's inconvenience. And I have experienced this one a lot in the last few months. In the UGC space, of course, you're working for yourself as a freelancer, and a lot of brands and agencies, sure, they do care about what's going on in your personal life, but at the end of the day, vacation time is not a thing in this space. If you're hired for a gig, you're required to complete it within an agreed upon deadline, regardless of what's going on in your life. This next con of UGC being sometimes inconvenient, it's going to happen eventually. A personal example of mine recently, this past May, I lost my grandmother, and I was going through a lot of grief for weeks on end, and I just did not feel like making content. Making content is a thing that you need to be in the right headspace for, mentally and physically. And I was telling my clients at the time that I was working with that, something happened in my life and all of that. But, that was the first week. And then the second week came around and I still just wasn't ready to be on camera. And I found that happened all the way into the third week and almost the fourth week. It basically almost took 4 weeks to get back into working with UGC and at least being there mentally and wanting to show up on camera. So that was one of the biggest reality checks of being a UGC creator, when something actually really impactful happened in my life where I couldn't show up on camera as I usually could. I couldn't. film anything, really showed me, okay, yeah, sometimes this gig is not as sustainable as I thought it could be. Thank God events like that don't happen often. Otherwise, I probably couldn't be able to do this job, because you really do have to show up for the camera, because people see that, and energy speaks through the camera as well, whatever is happening. But events will conflict with your UGC business, whether it be something very personal or something affecting your physical environment. And then bridging off of inconvenience, if you do not have a proper environment or setup to create content, you are going to have frustrating days. This one hits very close to home for me, because right now I'm currently living at my dad's. Me and my partner are saving up some money before we move back downtown. And I've just learned the hard way of creating content in noisy spaces, in places that are not really my own, where I don't have a proper setup. Like, I will literally have to tell my whole family to be quiet because I have to film. I'm so grateful that my family is kind enough. Unfortunately, in the UGC space, that is what you need. You need uninterrupted, quiet spaces for some of your work, especially if you're doing script reading or anything that is like talking to a camera or ASMR style, stuff like that. So I guess this con is you really do need a proper setup, otherwise you can't work. Because once again, filming is just going to be the most frustrating thing if you are not in a good space. One of the last ones to just wrap up here is tight deadlines. And this one doesn't affect me so much because I can get videos out very quickly. But if you're a new or intermediate or expert creator watching this, like, tight deadlines have just become the new normal in the UGC space. I think when UGC was starting to become more normal, longer deadlines were more normal, like 1 week, 2 weeks, I don't know, maybe even longer than 2 weeks. Now, a lot of brands want videos out within days. Like, literally 2 to 5 days is the normal. And I say like 2 to 5, but it's really, a lot of them are like 2 to 3 days. And I know I do a lot of work off of freelancer platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, so I speak a lot about those having the very tight deadlines without the rush fee services. And once again, you take a lot of these deals because at the end of the day, you just need to pay your bills. That is just what I've experienced. And since I came into the space already with these tight deadlines already there, I'm used to them. Every so often, I will get some UGC gigs that say like 1 to 2 weeks for a deadline. Guess what happens? Being a procrastinator, you're gonna leave it till the last 48 hours anyways. It doesn't even matter whether you give me 2 weeks or 3 days, because I will probably do it all within the last 48 hours of the deadline anyway. That's just how I function. I'm kind of type B. So if you're more type A and you're organized and you don't procrastinate, you might feel differently. And this is my very last con, and I'm sure I could go off about other cons, but this video would just get way too long. This one was off the top of my head. Some of the products or services are not going to align complete 100% with you. Doesn't mean that they're bad products or services, but they may be products or services that you don't generally use in your daily life, but you're still promoting them. You know, it's just part of the video. It's like a testimonial or something, telling people I've used this for X amount of time, or I love using this in my morning routine, when you really don't. That is really common in this space. All brands do it. They all, whether they're giving you a brief or a script, the more honest brands want you to be honest in your videos, but a lot of the time, especially with like testimonials or even just some scripts that are provided to you, a lot of them are just not real. And I feel that is a true con in the UGC space and online in general. Unfortunately, I'm used to it at this point, just like pretending that, sure, I use this product or this service. And once again, they may not be bad products or services, but you generally don't use them in your life, but you're telling the internet that you do because it's for a video ad. That would be my last kind of con. You don't have to accept these gigs if you don't want to, but if you are in this space long enough, like, you'll definitely come across stuff like that. I do want to wrap this video up because it is probably getting way too long. That was my rant about the cons of UGC. After doing this pretty much full-time, going on 2 years this fall, it has been an amazingly creative journey. It has funded my life. Things have gone really well for me, and it's given me a ton of freedom in my life. But long term, I don't know how long I will be doing UGC. Just going back to the point I made where I don't know how sustainable it is for me to do forever. What do I really want to do? Because I don't find this sustainable forever. You might be a creator who thinks they can do it forever, but personally, I'm loving it right now, but in 5 years, even in 1 year, I don't know if I'll be doing it full time. So let me know your thoughts, comments, questions in the comments, and I would love to read them. I truly do appreciate you, and I would love if you could help support my channel by interacting with this video, like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with future videos, and I'd love to have you guys along for the journey. Bye!